When creating learning objectives, you must be able to measure and observe the desired outcomes. One of the most common mistakes made is writing an objective that is unclear and not easily measurable. You will want to avoid using words like knows or understands and instead use action verbs to measure whether students are meeting the objective. Bloom's taxonomy is a great resource because it outlines the different levels of thinking and understanding. You'll want to start with the content or the standard that needs to be learned and then unpack that standard. You can do this by writing out or reading the standard itself word for word, then identifying verbs and key skills that the students can display to indicate they are mastering that standard. Once you have identified verbs and key skills of mastery, you'll need to identify who will master the objective, so the student, what will be done to display their mastery, the observable behaviors, so those action verbs we discussed, and how the behavior will be measured or observed. So how are you going to know that the student has mastered this behavior or this learning objective? There are some things you will want to ensure you're doing when writing the learning objectives. You'll want to make sure that the learning objective is clear and that your students know what it is at all times throughout the lesson. You can do this by displaying the objective as an I can statement where students can see it. So you could display it at the front of the classroom and students will be able to consistently see I can do this at the end of the lesson. You'll also want your assessment to match your learning objective. You can do this by beginning your planning by outlining clearly what you want your students to achieve at the end of the lesson and then kind of backtracking through the lesson and creating your assessment based off of those outlines. So an example of using these tips to create a learning objective would be to take the Arizona first grade learning standards for English language arts, describe characters, settings, and major events in a story using key details. And you could create a learning objective such as students will identify and list characters, name 2 settings within the story, and outline at least one major event after reading along with Put Me in the Zoo by Dr. Seuss. From this reading, you could prompt the students to recreate a major event in the book through a drawing and require that at least 2 characters and 1 setting are identified in the picture. So your assessment could be that you know the students were able to identify at least 1 major event because they have to draw a major event, as well as identify at least 1 setting in their picture and main characters. So you'd be able to assess that they understood each of those aspects of the book. Thank you.